Welcome to The Shield Within. The issues discussed on the Shield Within podcast do not reflect the opinions of any specific agency. They are the views of the host and the guest. Any persons discussed may be fictional for comedic purposes only. This podcast is rated explicit and listener discretion is advised. Listening to The Shield Within may trigger repressed or suppressed memories or experiences. Please contact a mental health professional at your earliest convenience. It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Welcome to the Shield Within.
Welcome.
I tell you what, we've actually, we haven't done a recording for like ever. Now David has so many guests lined up, so it's like every day we're doing another recording. But tonight we are especially excited. How's that? So tonight we have myself, Marc the Cop. We got Mr. Hat.
Hello.
Dr. David.
Howdy.
And the Steve Click.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
What's your title there, sir?
I am the director of the Ohio Office of First Responder Wellness.
That is outstanding.
Yes. Awesome.
Outstanding. You heard it here
Sounds
first.
good, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's fantastic. So let's do a little bit of business here. So if you're on Facebook, that's one of our many social media platforms. You can find us at Facebook /The Shield Within, or you can go to our website, which is www.theshieldwithin.com. You can see all of our smiling faces there, including Hedgehog Donnie. If you are in need and life isn't going well for you, you can talk to Dr. David himself. And the two ways you can do that, you can go to our website and hit that coaching button, or go to David's site, www.lessonslearnedcoaching.com. If David can't help you out, he has a vast network of therapists that he can help you with. Also, if you got all that change laying around in your car and you just don't want to do with it, so instead of letting Shecky the crackhead steal it out of there for you at night, you can go to Patreon /Shield Within. You can help us out. If you like the show, and you know you do because you're listening twice a month,
right.
You can help support us by doing that. It's $5 a month. Everybody's got $5. I mean, Jeff, you probably pissed that away at McDonald's just on purpose, don't you?
Sorry, I was not ready for that.
All right, so nobody wants to hear me rambling. Everyone loves to hear Dr. David talk, Steve. So I'm going to turn it over to Master Yoda himself. So
thank you, sir. Steve, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We had a great conversation on the phone, and I don't know a ton about you, so I had to look online and find out as much as I could about Steve Click. And I got to tell you, the first thing that I came up with was an article from a couple of years ago on Channel 5 Cleveland News. Like they did a little blurb on your office, and then did like a very brief interview with you. And there was a couple things that really stood out that I want to touch on later. But the thing that on the rest of the page, as I scrolled down, there was what I think might have been your Ohio State Highway Patrol card.
your bear card?
Yeah, I understand. Like, all the law enforcement people went through this period where everybody thought we all need cards.
Oh, I know.
So we can collect them, and
mistake.
So I saw you.
Jeff had one.
I've seen Jeff's, and I looked at that page, Steve, and I thought, I bet that's Steve's card. Do you think it is?
Probably, yeah. We did cards when I was at the Springfield Post.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, right. It just cracks me up. It's one of the funniest things I've ever learned about law enforcement in the last 20 years is y'all did cards.
Dumb.
Well, we did.
So dumb.
And they all had a message on the back, like,
they did.
Always wear your seatbelt when you drive, or don't, we were kind of the dare, our version of the dare in school. So we'd go out and hand these baseball cards out to kids, and they'd have some silly message on there in the back. So, yeah,
Gotcha.
So that was kind of our early chance or tries of making our name out there of we're here to help and that kind of stuff.
Very cool. I love it. Well, I'm wondering, Yes.
Can you see that beauty there, Steve? Look at that guy. Rod Farva.
What was your mustache's name there?
Yeah, Little Mark.
Well, I'm very curious, sir. I know you're from kind of like our neck of the woods in a general way. You've served Lima and Piqua, Delaware, a lot of the areas that, kind of like our stomping grounds around here. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of curious, how did you get into law enforcement? How did that decision get made?
I'm second generation. My father was a state trooper.
Okay.
And Dad was a trooper. He started at Bellefontaine. And then that's where he went back when he graduated from the academy as a patrolman in 1963. Then he went to Hamilton, and then they opened up the Lebanon Post. And when they first opened up the Lebanon Post, they asked for volunteers, and Dad went there, and he was there for several years. And then we went up to Lima, and he worked at the Lima Post, and then out of the Findlay District Headquarters, weighing trucks. And that was kind of what became really what he was kind of known for in the department was his commercial enforcement.
Okay.
And they stayed up there for a number of years. And then long after I was on the patrol, he came back down to the Springfield area when kind of missed the truck. So he went back over to Piqua District Headquarters, and that's where he finished out his career, was doing that. I also had family on the Springfield Police Department, and my cousin Michael was 2 classes ahead of me at the academy. Okay. So at one time there was 3 of us on the patrol.
Wow. And so you grew up in a home where there was at least, I assume your mom was not in law enforcement.
No, she worked, at one time she was a secretary for the Allen County DEA, but Mom was an executive secretary, so she worked for a number of places, but her closest involvement was being secretary for DEA. Which
is an interesting position all by itself.
Oh, sure.
So like you were a kid growing up with your dad, a trooper. How was it being his kid? Did he bring his work home? How was that for you?
No. In fact, his generation very, very much didn't bring work home.
Okay.
We very seldom we never heard war stories about what happened at work. And my father was a trooper during the 1960s. So he went to a lot of those situations where there was college unrest. He was at a number of prison riots and nothing. He came home. He took the uniform off, he locked his pistol up, and then he was dad until it was time to go back to work again. So didn't hear war stories. And one of the things I can honestly say, there was never you need to do this. He allowed me to come to this all on my own.
Okay.
The only thing he ever said is, "Are you sure?" And the only rule I had was, if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And other than that, he was very supportive, but it was never something that I was pushed to, or, you got to go into the family business or anything else like that. It's just whatever you're going to do it right.
Right. Awesome. Looking back on it, I know you know a lot more than you did when you were 12 or 15, but
sure.
Do you look back on it and think that was something Dad went through? I can see it now. I can see what he went through. He didn't show it to us, but I could see that work was hurting him. Could you see any of that now, looking back?
I did, and it's kind of funny because it really hit home to me when I had a stepson who was getting ready to get his driver's license.
Oh.
And I remember fights with my parents over me getting my driver's license. And I turned 16 at the end of December. I didn't get my license until April of that year. They made me, if they were going to the store, I had to drive. If they were going around the corner, I had to drive. And, at the time, I didn't really realize how hard that was for the time that they let me leave the driveway that first time under my own power until my stepson did it. And then I realized, wow, I guess I kind of understand now what it was like for Dad, having handled the crashes and everything. Of course, back when Dad was doing it, the cars didn't have the safety features. We didn't have seat usage like we do now. Anti-drunk driving campaigns, a lot of the stuff that we enjoy now and makes things safer, Dad didn't have that. He talks about they didn't have medics. They would get there, they would do what they could. A Cadillac ambulance would show up. Mm-hmm. They'd throw them on the cot, they'd throw them in the back, and they'd run like heck to the hospital.
Wow.
So it was a different time, and when I got to start coming up through my own career and seeing some of the things and being involved in them,
right,
and especially when it hit home was when my son was getting ready to drive, and I was like, man, that's hard to just let him drive out the driveway. And it gave me a true appreciation, I think, for what it was like to be my dad at that time.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you still have a close relationship with him, and you appreciate it.
I have a great relationship with my dad. I have a great relationship with my father.
That's awesome. We've heard so many stories of law enforcement folks who've had really difficult childhoods, traumatizing, like they walk into law enforcement with a load of shit to begin with, and it makes becoming a law enforcement person really, really more difficult. So I really love hearing that. Not everybody walks into this with, a boatload of childhood shit. I mean, our last guest, Brian Gray, same way. He had a wonderful, warm upbringing. And it sounds like
Absolutely.
you did as well. That good people, loving people, you didn't have to carry that into your career.
No, not at all. It's funny. I'm sure you've probably heard of the ACEs, adverse childhood experience things.
Exactly.
So when I was with mental health and addiction services, I took that just to see.
Yeah. What the hell?
Got a 0.
Got a 0.
And at the time was like impossible.
I'm an 8. I'm an 8, and I'm not my number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I retook it just to make sure I wasn't lying.
Yeah.
But I didn't. I had a good experience. My family that was in law enforcement, both in Springfield and everything else, good experiences, positives. They were people to be looked up to. I really feel fortunate that I had that supportive relationship growing up with my folks.
Yeah, it makes a powerful difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good for you, man. Well, I'm fascinated. I saw so many transitions in your career that I'm just real interested in. Like the first one just cracks me up, man. I just think this is so cool. As I understand it from reading the bit of information I could find you on LinkedIn, you started out as a cadet dispatcher.
Yes. Yep.
What was that like? You were like, what, 16?
No. I just turned 18. You had to be at least 18 to be a cadet dispatcher, but I wasn't old enough yet to go to the academy.
Okay.
So what was unique about that is my father was working out of Findlay at that time, and I was assigned to the Lima post. I lived in Lima, and I was assigned to the Lima post. Well, there were times I talked to him on the radio, and there were times I dispatched him to things. And one particular case where the troopers had jumped a car that was taken out of a armed robbery situation, and they tried to take a hostage, and Dad happened to be the one that made the stop and took them into custody and waited for the cavalry to get there and stuff. And people were like, what was that like? And it was like, it was work. I mean, it didn't freak me out or anything else like that. So that was a position that the patrol had, and you did that until you were old enough to go to the academy.
Okay.
You wore a blue cadet uniform. You had to comply with all of the appearance standards. You had to exercise the military discipline with the officers and everything else like that. But it was funny. They one of the older sergeants pulled me aside one time because he heard me call my dad Trooper Click. And he pulled me aside and says, look, when the public's in here, he's Trooper Click. When it's just us, it's Dad. And I said, okay. So many years later, actually, when I was in the same district with Jeff, we would be at the scene of things, and I was a sergeant, and Dad was still a troop. And
now that worked out.
I'm not going to call him Dad, so I would call him by his unit number. And I would just, or I would just come up and start talking to him. But he always around the public called me Sarge or Sergeant. And if they bothered to look at the name bars, nobody ever let on. But yeah, it's,
that is
a unique
great
experience.
I love that. I got to ask, this experience of being a dispatcher just by itself, was that traumatizing?
It wasn't, because, I didn't know any different. And I think that it has given me a real empathy for dispatchers that do the job. I'm married to a former dispatcher, and she works in works for the patrol's fiscal services section now, but she started her career with the patrol as a dispatcher. And one of the things I talk about in my classes is I ask agencies to please don't forget your communicators, your dispatch personnel, when something goes sideways and you need to bring in peer support resources or whatever. They are truly the first first responder.
Yeah.
And I think that, having set desk at one time gave me a little bit more understanding and empathy for what it was like to sit desk.
Yeah.
Didn't mean I always practiced it. Like anybody, sometimes I got a little cranky on the road and a little short with the dispatchers, and I always got snapped back into place by a dispatcher.
Right.
Thomas can tell that story. But yeah, I think it gave me yes, exactly. Yeah. So you guys are familiar with the 10 deadly errors. I have the 11th deadly error written in my old pitch book, which is not telling your dispatcher where you are. Because I disappeared one night for about 45 minutes and didn't realize my portable wasn't on. Whoops. And they had the entire world looking for me. And I lost about 4 pounds of butt that night, and I deserved every bit of it. But it wasn't a traumatic experience. I enjoyed it, but to be honest, it wasn't what I wanted to do.
Okay.
I really do respect the folks that do that for all the years that some of those folks have set that desk and talked on that radio and those phones and done that. I wanted to be a road unit. I wanted to be a trooper. I wanted to get out on the road. So it was a means to an end to get me to the point where I could go out on the road.
Dispatchers have a special place. We are working to get the gentleman who has started a podcast just for dispatchers. It's an incredible podcast. It's episode. He was here in Ohio just here in the last few weeks doing a conference, and I'm 8 minutes into episode 510, and I'm just sitting on my back porch weeping. The stories these people have to tell about the sounds of anguish when somebody calls in, and then you never hear the rest of the story. I mean, you send people to the scene, and they do what they need to do, and over and over and over again, you have to let go of that. Almost as soon as you take care of your business, you got another call, or you just got to let go of it. Otherwise, it'll eat you up, man. So I'm just I think that's a really cool way to start your career on that end of things.
And I think that it gave me a lot of skills and everything, communication skills. That helped me out as I started to, went out on the road and stuff like that. I agree with you. I think that all new officers should get an opportunity to spend some time in radio. It might make them a little bit more empathetic when they're out there and make them a little bit more understanding of what it's like to do that job. And appreciate how difficult that job is and how important that job, because, for Jeff and I, we're out on the road. Well, most of the time we may not know where crashes were. We didn't roll up on a lot of them. We rolled up on some, but mostly we were dispatched by a dispatcher who got all the information we needed so we could roll in there prepared with the right resources. So I'm a huge fan of dispatch.
Yeah,
Steve, that was something that with my officers, I was a sergeant. We're all members of the Stripe here, so I was a sergeant with my former agency, and that's one thing. When they were new officers, always required them to go up to dispatch and sit for at least 8 to 10 hours. And I always asked them to go ahead and put them on the mic. They don't have to type in or know the codes, but they need to be there and experiencing that side of the microphone. I think that's so critical. And then in my job, we used to have a class called Dispatching for the Emergency Response, which we would show them. We would do a mock pursuit, and we would show the dispatchers that, hey, look, they can't always talk to you because they're actually driving the car. So I think it's just kind of familiarizing one another about what things look like on both sides of the microphone.
Well, a fun story is like I started in the mid-late 90s, and we had to sit desk. Like, he'd come in all ready to go, like, oh man, I'm going to hit the road, man. I'm going to hit the road. Like, oh, hey, dispatcher called off, you're sitting dispatch. This is before all the technology and computers and shit.
Right.
We had one computer. So you'd work dispatch a couple of times a week and then go out. And so Steve's absolutely right. That knowing
kind of humbling, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you get to phones and, in our agency, it's back then it was how many tickets can you write, how many cars can you stop and before lunch, and it's nonstop. And then the phone rings, and you're like, fuck, goddamn. And then we're not trained on 911 operations or anything like that or anything. We try to, and we're fortunate, a lot of the calls went to different agencies for that kind of stuff. But it was it's an eye opener, dude. It's
very much.
Yeah.
That's cool. But you knew you wanted to be on the road. So how many years in before trauma started to happen?
How about 11 days?
11
Oh my God.
days.
My first fatal was 11 days out of the academy. 16-year-old boy lost control of a pickup truck, rolled it over, ejected himself and his 17-year-old passenger. The truck came to rest on the top half of the 17-year-old. He panicked, he threw up, he aspirated it, and he died. And that's my first day. And Jeff can tell you, that was my first day driving. So the first day of the trooper's career driving is now he's actually talking on the radio. He's doing the job, and his coach is now watching and observing and guiding.
Okay.
So my coach walks by me with all this chaos going on, and he walks by and he can see that look on my face. He goes, "Don't F this up."
Words of encouragement.
Yeah.
21 years old, you're 11 days out of the academy, but it's your first day driving. Congratulations. This mess is on you. We handled 3 fatals while I was in my coaching period.
Oh, wow.
I had people out of my academy class that when we went back to our 2-year school had not been to a fatal yet.
0.
And I did 3 in my coaching period. I was at Delaware at the time, and it's what we seemed to do at that time back then is, so probably 11 days out was my first fatal. I had the family show up at the scene. They
chaos.
So I've got moms and dads and both boys and everything else like that. So 11 days out of the gate.
Did you know what it was doing to you?
No, not the first clue. Because, they told us back then, these things are going to happen, but it's the job. This is what we do. This is the job. And we had a particularly rough shift early in my career. I had about maybe a year on. And before we went home that evening on an afternoon shift, the sergeant says, "Guys, go home and have a drink." Now, he didn't tell us that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
He didn't tell us that to get us in trouble. He didn't tell us that to hem us up.
Right.
That's what somebody had told him at the beginning of his career. And that was how, that's how you dealt with it. You went home. And, over the years, you start seeing these things. And one of the things I talk about when I teach about bears and ducks. And, bears, everybody knows what that bear is. It's a use of deadly force fire against an officer, coworker, something like that. Mm-hmm. Everybody understands the dangerous part of a bear. The ducks, though, over the period of 5, 10, 25, 30 years of doing this job, the ducks do the same thing the bear does. He does it all at one time, really loud, bloody, and exciting. The ducks do it over a very, very long period of time. And, I look back at my career and the notifications that I had to make while I was, training. I remember one early on, we went to the house, double fatal, drunken, ran off the road, hit a tree, killed himself and his passenger. When we went to the driver's house, she came to the door. The house was terrible. It was in a horrible condition. But she came to the door. She was holding one. One was holding onto her leg, and she was pregnant with number 3. And we tell her he's dead. He's not coming home. But you didn't. I'll be honest, Doc, you didn't think about it. You had a report you had to finish up. You had to get back to the post. Jeff can tell you, we graded fatals by holding them to see how heavy they were.
Right.
One vehicle runs off the road, hits a tree. How much paperwork can you generate? But you got to generate some because somebody died.
Yeah.
But, you start thinking about all those things. And now that I teach, I've been teaching for the last several years, this stuff, you're reminded of those different events and stuff like that. They don't play with me all the time. I don't think about them all the time. Right. But if you need to, they're there and you can pull them up. So no, you don't have any clue. You really don't. What it's doing to you, what it's doing to your relationships. Yeah. I look back now. Gosh, I wish I knew. Years ago what I knew now. I wouldn't have had to buy 2 women houses. Coughed up retirement, and I wish I had some of the skills and the information that I have now, the resources.
Yeah.
This breaks my heart. I'll talk to chiefs all the time, and they're like, "God, I wish we'd have had this in the beginning of my career."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, we've got it now. Take advantage of it." And they're like, "No, take care of the kids. I'm fine." And my response to that always is, "Really? How much did you drink last night? How much did you just sleep? What marriage is this? And how much do you weigh?"
Yeah.
And chief, you're doing great.
Awesome.
Because but I think this new generation's doing better than we did.
Okay.
I really do. I think that our leadership across police, fire, EMS, corrections, dispatch are better. They're more tuned to it. And I think that we're recognizing that we need to take care of our folks better than we did.
Yeah, awesome. Looking back on it, I love your metaphor. As the ducks were nibbling on you, was there like a, I don't know, like Mark talks about his bucket gets full and then it overflows.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like at some point, did the nibbling the ducks were doing to you, like, did your wife pick up on it? Did your kids? Did something happen inside you that made you pay attention to what the ducks were doing to you?
Yeah, I think it was. I realized that on the road, I wasn't, and Jeff will get this analogy, and I'll explain it in a second. But I wasn't what Lynn Black had ever expected me to be. Lynn Black was the first superintendent of the Highway Patrol. Basically established what we were to be as an organization. And I wasn't that guy anymore. I was not particularly professional. I was sarcastic. Empathy was gone. Empathy just was non-existent with me, with everybody, with my spouse, with my family. My friends were all like me, so we didn't see anything wrong with it. We were all equally messed up.
Right.
And I realized I wasn't, and I looked at my dad. I wasn't my dad. I wasn't the trooper my father had been. I wasn't the trooper my father wanted me to be, or that the patrol expected out of me. And then I started thinking, would I really want to stop? Would I want to be stopped by me at 3:00 in the morning, coming home from work? Would I want to be stopped by me? And I'm like, no, that guy's a jerk. I needed to do something. I needed to fix that. And it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
The turnaround didn't happen overnight. The correction didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
But over the course of time, I recognized I wanted to go back to being what I was at the beginning.
Yes.
And have those ideals and that level of professionalism and stuff like that. But, I couldn't do it alone. I was going to need help, and I got that help.
You got treatment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I was going through a divorce. Wasn't happy about it. Wasn't my idea.
Yeah.
And I wasn't dealing well, and I decided to go see a clinician. Now, the problem was the only clinical practice I knew about in Central Ohio was the same one that every department sends their people to for fitness for duty evaluations when they screw up.
Okay.
So I lied to my lieutenant about why I needed the day off. I told him I had a plumber come into the house. I changed clothes, I changed cars, and I went to this clinical practice. And I'm sitting in the waiting room, and I'm thinking, I don't need to be here. This is stupid. I just need to toughen up, man up. People have gone through divorces before. Get your act together. And I looked across the waiting room, and there sat an officer from a large municipal department in my area. Mm-hmm. Now, we recognized each other. We didn't know each other. We'd seen each other at jail or on the road or something. I knew he was from that department. He knew I was Highway Patrol. And I thought to myself, well, at least he doesn't know my name. And with that, the receptionist goes, Stephen Click. Next to give my social security number and address.
Right.
And I've now made the decision I'm not staying. I'm going to tell the clinician, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. I'm not sticking around for this.
Yeah.
And when I went upstairs, he was in like a bedroom. This practice was in an older, big, huge Victorian house. And first thing I saw was the couch. And I thought, oh, no. I'm out of here. But then he said, how about we have a seat over here? And I looked over, and he was standing next to a big bay window with these two huge leather wingback chairs that looked really comfortable. They were. Mm-hmm. And as I walked across the room, I noticed on the walls were pictures of amateur race cars. Sometimes the cars were in motion. Sometimes they were stationary. And next to some of the stationary pictures was this guy I'm going to talk to in racing gear. So I'm thinking I'm going to see like ink blots or something. No, this guy races amateur race cars. As I get up to him, he sticks out his hand. He goes, "State trooper, huh?" And I went, yeah. The last and only time we talked about what I did for a living. We never mentioned it again. Wow. What brings you here, he says. So I proceed to tell him my story. Yeah. He's not looking at his phone. He's not looking at a computer. He's not taking notes. He's not looking out the window. He's just listening to me tell my story. Mm-hmm. when I'm done, he looks at me and goes, well, let me ask you a question. Today sucks, doesn't it? I said, oh, yeah. He goes, well, let me help you. Tomorrow's going to suck too, and so's the next day, and it's going to suck for a while. And I remember thinking, buddy, if you're trying to cheer me up, you suck. But here's what John was explaining. Just because you came in and sit down, life isn't magically better. Everything is changing for you.
Right.
Your relationship with her son, her parents, your friends, money, your job, your career, how you look at life, everything's going to be different. And I can't undo that just because you came in and sat in the chair.
Yes.
I saw John a couple of times and I got ready to leave and he goes, let me see if I can recap where we are. And he held his hands really far apart and he goes, this part's hers. These are the things that she needs to work on. This is the parts of this that you need to stop messing with. This is hers to fix. And I went, okay. Then he held his hands a little closer together. He goes, this part's yours, pal. And I got really angry. That's what I mean, mine. I'm the innocent party this time. I didn't do anything wrong this time. I'm the victim. And then he got mad. And he said, you know what? Just keep thinking like that. Go find the most attractive woman you can find, give her half your retirement, and buy her a house. You're wondering who's involved here? Let me help you. You both are. You both made it, and you both broke it. And I was like, wow, this guy is not my friend. He's my doctor. What were my friends telling me? Hate her, always hated her, never liked her. No, that's bull. Two of you idiots introduced me to her. You know, she wasn't a bad person. We didn't work out.
Yeah.
I got ready to leave after a couple more visits and he goes, I think you're good. I said, you do? He goes, yeah, you disagree? I said, well, he goes, look, we identified the issue. We acknowledged the fact that it's going to suck. Some days a lot, some days not so much, but it's going to get better, which it did. I'm glad you didn't ask for medication because you didn't need it. I wasn't going to give it to you. If you ever need me, I'm a phone call away. It was a pleasure to meet you. He stuck out his hand and I shook his hand. I walked out the door thinking, man, if I ever need him, he's there. And because I knew he was there, if this makes sense,
yes.
I never knew.
Yes.
Because I knew he was there. Yeah. Now, I didn't tell a soul I had seen a clinician. I had a reputation to maintain. A couple of years later, I told some people close to me and I expected this big reaction. I got, oh, what's for lunch? No one cared. No one cared that I'd gone to see a doctor. All they cared about was you were going down a bad path and something happened and you're better and you're making those improvements. And they didn't know what it was. They didn't care what it was. All they cared about was that I was in a better place. I truly believe John saved my career. And I honestly believe he probably saved more. Because, I was heading in a bad direction. And, I will have been married here in a couple of weeks. I will have been married now 19 years to my beautiful, wonderful wife. We've been together 21. I'm happily retired. I'm into my next career. A lot of things that I stood the real potential of losing had I not finally had enough and took that initiative to go see somebody. And then the support of people around me after they knew I'd gone that, we're really glad you did that. So,
yeah, that's beautiful. Did you share the experience with your then soon to be ex-wife? Did it end up being shared that you had seen a therapist?
Yes. I told her.
Yeah.
I told her. It started off really bad, very adversarial. Yes. Very, I'm going to take everything. Nope, you're not going to get anything, that type of thing. And honestly, we walked in, this is really messed up. We walked into our final hearing in front of the judge holding hands. Oh. The marriage was over. The relationship was over. Yeah. But it was difficult for both. And we recognized that if we were ever going to continue to move forward, we needed to support each other that day. And later that evening, she called my house and just said, hey, I just want to make sure, because it was her idea and everything else. But she called later to say, hey, I just wanted to make sure that you were okay. And that, you're doing all right. And if you need anything. And to this day, when my mother passed away a couple of years ago, she came to the funeral. Wow. And she gave my wife a big hug and she gave me a hug and went up and gave my dad a big hug. Awesome. And I think that was far better than keeping it hateful and adversarial and, screw you, no screw you type of thing.
Right. Was sharing the information that you had gone to the therapist and a little bit about that interaction, did that make a difference to her?
She was glad I did, though. She was glad I did. She had recognized one of her favorite expressions is "Don't talk to me like I'm on the road," because I did. I used that road voice. Something would happen, and I would shift gears, and I would get into that. And no, you did not just stop me. This isn't how this works.
I've never heard that before. Never.
I think she was glad I just did something so that way I didn't repeat the cycle.
Right.
I really did. She again had known my wife before my wife before we got together and everything else like that. And I think she was glad that hopefully Lori wouldn't go through some of the things that she had to go through. That because I sought out that help, and I truly believe that John Mason, like I said, he saved my career at the very least.
That's beautiful to know. Beautiful to know. At some point in your being on the road, you became an officer. What prompted that decision?
Oh, to get promoted?
Yeah.
I like being in charge. I like telling people what to do. I'll freely admit it. I'm not one of those guys. Oh, I never wanted to be in charge. Yes, I did. I liked being in charge. And Jeff will tell you, in our organization, there's a strong push to move up in rank. They strongly encourage it. It's kind of a bellwether of how your career is going. And, we know guys that stay their entire career as troopers, and they're amazing, and they're just, the services they provide are just, you can't even grade it.
Yeah.
But for some people, they want that next level, and I did. I wanted that. I wanted that next level. My goal and aspiration was always to be a post commander. That was what I wanted to do. To be a post commander. I was not. I was a sergeant for 17 years in a couple of different positions. Probably the closest I came was when I was a sergeant when the State Patrol brought back the motorcycles in 2006.
Oh, nice.
Myself and the other sergeant, we were probably as close to being post commanders as somebody could be in the state of Ohio and not have the rank or the pay. We had a lot of latitude. It was a brand new program. Everything was new, from the equipment to the procedures to how we trained. Everything was new. Wow. And that was such a great experience. And I knew that if I didn't take that initial promotion back in 1994, I was never going to get the opportunity to do some of those things later in my career. Gotcha.
Was being an officer harder?
You mean officer or sergeant?
Sergeant.
Yeah.
To me, it's an officer.
No. Okay.
I mean, you're...
It's funny, Doc, because, and I think Jeff and Mark will tell you the same thing. When you're coming up through the ranks, you think as a road officer, man, when I'm the sergeant, things are going to go my way. My God, folks are going to do what I tell them, and I'm going to run the world. And every time you bump up, you realize not only are you not running the world, but you're adding bosses.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because when you're a road officer, you've got one person in the whole world to make happy, Sarge.
Yep.
That's it. If you make Sarge happy, the rest of the organization will leave you alone. But as you move up, now you've got to keep the road officers happy and your next level up. And every time you jump, you think, well, this is going to be it. No one's going to tell me what to do anymore. People told me what to do up until my last day.
Right.
Steve, how many years?
That I'm around the senior staff and have been around the senior staff of the patrol for a number of years. People tell the colonel what to do. Or you're thinking, well, he's the colonel. No, he's got bosses that he answers to and gets questioned by and stuff. So, I think that, but I don't regret doing it at all. I don't regret making that jump and going through that. And I think it was very good for me.
How many years did you have on, Steve, before you got promoted to sergeant?
8.5.
8.5. Okay. I was 7.5 or so. Too early for me.
Me too, Jeff, because I remember laying there the night before I went to Springfield thinking, wait a minute, I am no smarter than I was last week.
Right.
Wasn't I supposed to get all this knowledge and experience?
Yeah.
I mean, when I came on, my 4 sergeants all had over 30 years. I came on at Lima. My 4 sergeants all had over 30 years on. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I'm as dumb as I was last week. But in an hour, people are going to look at me and they're going to say, hey, Sarge, what do you think? Now, I went to Springfield, and Jeff will know who I'm talking about. I had folks like Terry Brown and Newt Oliver, who I would say, we're going to do this. And Newt would be like, we can do that, Sarge, but could we think about this? And I very quickly learned whatever Newt suggested, go with it, because he made sure he protected me so many times and kept me from going a wrong direction. But he did it in such a great way that, you know, I never felt challenged. I never felt questioned. I felt like this guy's educating me and he's supporting me and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. At that point, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm still dumb as a hay rake. How am I going to be?
And I went from a small sleepy post to a urban guns a-blazing post, you know, overnight. Like, wake up the next morning. And they're looking at me like, hey, Sarge, what are we going to do here? I'm like, you know, at that first few seconds, you're like, oh, shit, what have I done? But then you go in guns a-blazing, and it worked out great. Yeah, and but yeah. It's
17 years you were a sergeant, and when you ended your career with the patrol, were you still a sergeant at that point?
No, sir. I got promoted after I did 6.5 years on the motorcycle unit. I had the opportunity. It had actually been a career-long aspiration to go to our training academy as a new lieutenant. I was the division armorer, which is a really cool gig. If it goes bang, that was what. And again, the cool part of that is I'm working with guys like James Kress, Bobby Hildebrandt, Jeff Kramer, Jake Piles, Chris Colbert. I mean, just the names of the guys that worked the firearms in their districts that I got to interact with on a regular basis.
And we were just as happy. We're like, oh, Lieutenant Click, oh, fuck yeah, man. Yeah, because you don't always get the guy you want in there, you know, and then Steve Click rolls in, and you're like, oh, fuck yeah.
You know, the guys would come in, and I'd be like, hey, you need a box of, you need case ammo? Grab a case of ammo.
Those are good days.
Get out there and be more proficient. But I had amazing people. And then I also had people at the academy in leadership roles who taught me how to make that transition in our organization from sergeant to lieutenant when you become a commander. And it is a transition. And you know, you have to make that transition. And folks like Heidi Marshall and the current superintendent, Colonel Chuck Jones, was one of my bosses at the academy. And they took the time to teach me and show, okay, you're not a sergeant anymore, and you're not in the field anymore. You're academy now, and people are looking at you differently, and the staff is around, and really helped me. You know, I hit a few speed bumps there, you know, a couple of times. I sent out ceremonial rifles without slings.
Whoops.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
Yeah,
that's a big thing.
That'd be a problem.
Yeah. And when my captain at the time, who's one of my best friends in the whole world still to this day, was questioning that, I'm like, I'm the division armor. If they have a problem with it, tell them to see me. That didn't work out. So there were a few speed bumps as a lieutenant, but again, they treated it as education. They treated it as training. They said, look, you're trying. You just need to be smarter about your trying. And it was a great opportunity. So I did that for from 2012 to 2016. And then I was getting ready for a cadet graduation, which is a huge deal in the patrol. Huge deal. And the colonel secretary called and said, do you have time today at 1:00 to meet with the superintendent? Of course, I'm like, absolutely. Well, right before this meeting, I knew that they'd sent some guys to look at a new program for mental health. And right before this meeting with the boss, one of the lieutenant colonels walks in and goes, you know what this meeting's about, right? I said, well, I guess I'm helping with this program. He goes, no, you're running the program. Friday's your last day in the academy. Do you own a suit? I said, I am. One, well, you're going to need more than that, because you're going into plain clothes and you're going to drive an unmarked car, and you're going to set this program up. So myself and Heidi Marshall basically had to take an idea and turn it into the Ohio Assist program, which just recently completed its 22nd post-critical incident seminar for almost 600 Ohio first responders.
Wow.
And again, I would not have been given that opportunity had I not gotten those jumps and the support from the people around me, including my wife. It's funny, I went home that day and I said, I'm out of the academy. I started personnel on Monday.
What did you do, Steve? What did you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That finally came to catch you. Yeah.
Yeah. She said, could you have said no? And Jeff, I looked at her, I said, have you met Paul Pride?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really wasn't. It wasn't an option. Our colonel at that time was a former Marine, very much a Marine mentality. And it wasn't, Steve, would you like to do this? It's, you're going to go do this.
Yeah.
And you're going to start Monday and you're going to make this a success. And you're like, Roger that, sir. And started me on that trajectory of what I'm doing now. And every once in a while, I send him a quick text message and I said, hey, boss, just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity. Because it's just been, you know, folks tease me all the time. They say, you know, you're retired, right? And I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't work, right? You know, getting a chance to talk to you guys tonight, this is great. This is what I love doing.
No, we're absolutely thrilled you're here.
I love it. During your time as teaching, when you were teaching, was there somewhere in the curriculum anything about mental health?
Very little. Very little. The Peace Officer Training Academy has a class on dealing with crisis or something like that. They admittedly realize that it needs to be more. It needs to be a lot more. But again, you know, anything with law enforcement training moves very, very slowly, unfortunately. And they're aware of that, and they're doing what they can. They've recently created a blue ribbon panel of individuals who are going to be helping look at what training looks like, what it should be, both from a curriculum standpoint, from a, you know, at what levels of their job should they get this type of training to, you know, what subject matters have we not been covering that we should. And one of the things that we know over the last couple of years is one of my courses has been one of the courses that qualified for continuing professional training in the state of Ohio, which was a 4-hour block on crisis awareness and officer safety. So for 22 and 23, that was one of the accepted 4-hour blocks of training in that area. Was just how to recognize when things are going to go sideways and what you can do to take care of yourself.
Beautiful. You said something earlier about being your students that was really encouraging to me. That you see some of the students, the cadets coming through the training academy now, the younger generation, as maybe you feel pretty optimistic about them. Did I understand that right?
I do.
Tell me.
I really do.
I really want to hear more about this.
People are ridiculously smart. They are very well educated. They are coming into this line of work. And, you know, the last couple of years has been especially difficult for recruitment sections and getting folks, not just in law enforcement, in fire across the board, and getting anybody to actually want to go out and work. So the young people that we're getting in today, they want it. They're motivated, because otherwise they just won't do it. They'll wig out after they, you know, don't pass the test or something like that. Jeff and I remember guys that we went to the academy with that took the test several times until they finally passed. And I mean, that's dedication.
Yes.
I really want this job.
Yeah, that's cool.
Study table.
So I see them, and I also see them. They don't want to repeat the mistakes that they watch their dads and their grandfathers and everybody else make. They don't want to end up in divorce. They don't want to drink their jobs away. They don't want to get in trouble with the department. They don't want to do all the things, you know, that they saw or heard about previous generations. They want to be healthy. They want to be happy. And what's really great is leadership. That group that's like, rub dirt on it, it'll make it better. They're aging out. They're leaving. They have no choice. They're getting old and they've got to go, you know, somewhere else. The new generation of leadership is like, I got to have these people. I've got to keep them healthy because I got nobody waiting to come take their job.
So there's more sensitivity to how your staff is doing and their welfare.
There is, because as the leader of the department, I have to make sure that our vehicles are maintained, our building is taken care of, and my people, the most valuable resource I have, I got to put every bit of, if not more, resource into that than I do to taking care of our fleet, taking care of our building, taking care of our uniforms, because I can replace all that other garbage. I mean, if the city council will write me a check, I can replace all that. I can't get people in the door that want to come do this job and do it well. So I've got to take care of the 25 that I've got, because there's not 35 outside waiting to come take their place.
Yes.
There was at a time, you don't like it, get out. We've got 10 guys waiting for your job. That's not the case anymore. So I've got to take care of the people that I've got that are doing the job.
Beautiful, beautiful. And my experience has been in working with teams that when team leaders treat everybody else in the team with respect and let everybody do their job, and they basically, you take care of your folks, they take care of you. And your job as a leader becomes fantastically easier when you're treating your people well.
I had a great post commander, and he had 4 very different, very type double, triple, quadruple A personalities. And we would go in his office, and he would throw out an idea or something like that, and the war would start. And we, have you lost your effing mind? We can't do that. That's the dumbest. We'd go to war, and he would listen to all of us. And then in the end, he would say, okay, guys, great. Thanks for the input. We're going to do X. And to a man, the 4 of us went, absolutely, sir. And we left that office, and we made it happen because he'd listened.
Yeah.
Because we knew we'd had an opportunity to express what we thought, and he took it into account. He just didn't go, yeah, whatever. No. He listened to us.
Yeah.
So then when he made the decision, we had the confidence and the loyalty to him to say, now we're going to make it work. We're going to make it happen. What a great example he was for me as a leader, that hopefully I carried some of that stuff over to my time, both at the motor unit and the State House, and then also at the Academy.
Beautiful, beautiful. As you work around the state, when you were still doing the training and on the field and so forth, you had an opportunity to interact with a lot of different departments, a lot of different jurisdictions. Did you find it common, uncommon, to find leaders in departments that were doing what you just described, taking care of their people?
It's hit and miss, but I'm seeing a lot more hits.
Okay.
There's still that occasional, dinosaur that, this is all hug camp and this is dumb and we don't do this. But they're the outliers.
Okay. They
really, truly are. They're the outsiders, and you can tell in the departments they're not the ones that are moving up and stuff like that. I have got some amazing friends across the state who just happen to be the chief executives of their departments. But you can tell they've got a heart for their people.
Yeah.
Their people know they have a heart for them.
Yeah.
And because of that, these departments, they're encouraging other people to join. They're staying, which is another big thing is retention.
Yes.
Keeping people in this line of work after they see and experience the things that they do.
Yeah.
It's more that you're seeing that than still those old occasional dinosaur departments. And what's funny, Doc, is some of those old dinosaur departments are actually the ones calling saying, I don't know what they're talking about. Will you help me?
Wow.
That's a clue.
I didn't come up that way. Yeah. What are they talking about? How do I do this? What does that look like for my department?
Yeah.
And then we connect them with some of the amazing leaders in departments around the state and say, look, this chief really wants help, getting their department squared away. Can you tell them what worked for you, what landmines you found, and will you be there so they can pick up the phone occasionally and say, I need some guidance here.
Beautiful, beautiful. The Ohio Assist program. How are we doing with time, bro?
Oh, we're good.
We're good.
Keep rolling.
The Ohio Assist program, you have that. Obviously, somebody told you, "Hey, you're going to do this now." so over the weekend, you filled your head with what that's going to be like. What was your first week like at that job?
Oh my gosh, water out of a fire hose. But I have to tell you that Wednesday, when I found out I was leaving in 2 days, it was going to start on Monday. I was connected with a gentleman named Dr. Eric Skidmore from South Carolina. Dr. Skidmore had created the post-critical incident seminars back in 2000 with the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, along with the FBI. That's in 11 states now. Ohio is just one of 11 states that does these.
Okay.
And it's funny because Eric's got a very, very Southern draw, very South Carolina, very, what you would expect. And he's like, Stevie, would you give me y'all's email address? I'm going to send you a couple things. Well, he blows up my email. I mean, he just filled it up with forms and schedules and documents and everything else. And then he followed it up with a phone call that says, now y'all just take my logo off and put your logo on. I'd never seen something where people didn't care about credit.
Yeah.
They didn't want credit for it.
Yeah.
Somebody had done that for them. They did it for us.
Yeah.
We have in turn done it for other states. Take our logo off, put your logo on,
and run it.
And it was just basically starting from scratch.
Wow.
But what was really cool was as I started within the patrol is every time I would get any pushback, I would just go, no problem. I'll let the colonel know that you said no.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute. The colonel? Well, yeah, he sent me here. He wanted me to do this, but I'll just tell him you're not interested. Hang on a second. Let's talk about this. So knowing I had him in my back pocket with his permission, having him support this program and him making it a priority made it a priority to everybody in the organization that had any level of desire to move up and be a part of the organization.
Gotcha.
It was important to the boss. It became important to them.
Beautiful. So it sounds kind of exciting when you started this, the first few weeks, first few months.
Oh, it was. Yeah. So we started, I got transferred in March of 2016.
Okay.
And we ran our first seminar in March of 2017. And you think, wow, what did you do to stay occupied for a year? Well, we did a lot.
Yeah.
We went to several post-critical incident seminars to see how we actually sat at the table. I went to Virginia. I sat at the table. I told my story. My wife went. She told her story. I got to see both from that side of it and then also the administrative side of it. We went to a number of different states helping them. I'm running around the whole state of Ohio trying to talk the program up, talking to different people. Plus, I had to make inroads into the fire, EMS, dispatch and corrections world because that wasn't where I was from.
Right.
And so now I'm trying to, build partnerships and relationships within those other disciplines that traditionally wasn't an area that I had experience in.
Right.
So we ran our first one in March of 17 and a number of other states sent their people who had ran them before to run our program. And we watched.
Wow.
And then in the fall of 17, most of those people came back. We ran the program and they watched.
Okay.
And every afternoon we would sit down as a team and they would say, now you know why we don't do this.
Wow.
Or that worked, didn't it? And we had a chance to ask them questions and pick their brains and stuff like that. The program is now run by Lieutenant Molly Harris from the Highway Patrol. Does an amazing job. She's actually taken the program and moved it light years ahead as far as organization, everything else like that. The critiques are overwhelmingly positive of people that have come to the program. I've had chiefs tell me that people have stayed. They were going to leave and now they're staying. We've had people say that it changed, it saved their relationship. It saved their marriage. And we include support persons. Husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, coworker, anybody you want to bring.
Yeah.
And one of and we go around Monday and we talk about what brought them here. They get a chance to tell their story. And then on Wednesday, we kind of go around the circle again. What brought you here Sunday? Where were you? Where are you now as you're getting ready to leave? And one wife said, he told me we were going to a couples retreat and I was going to get my hair done and my nails. And I was
wrong kind of retreat, right?
A microphone in my hand and made me talk about the worst day of my life. No one had ever asked her. The phone call she got one night was, I just killed a guy. I'll be home when I can. And the phone went dead. Next thing she knows, the media is in her front yard, still not home. No one ever sat down and said, how did you deal with it? Because they focused on him.
Yeah.
And now here we were saying, you're important too. Tell us your story. And like I said, 500, I think we're at 590 that have attended the program to date. Police officers, firefighters, medics, dispatchers, corrections officers, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, siblings have attended the program to date. And it's just it's absolutely amazing. We partner with a program called the First Responders Bridge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've heard of that.
A program that was started by a retired Columbus police officer and a retired Westerville officer. They encourage people to come to our program. We encourage people to go to their program. Mm-hmm. It's not at all about, I'm better than you. Both programs offer unique opportunities, and we want those first responders to get as much of that resource as they can. Mick and Mike and those guys run an amazing program, great critiques, great evaluations, and they've sent folks to us. We're a little bit more one-on-one. We keep it to like 30 people, whereas First Responders Bridge can have 100, 120 people in the room. So we encourage people to go there for the education and the presentations. They encourage folks to come to us for that one-on-one piece. It's really just about taking care of Ohio's first responder community.
That's the idea. Beautiful, beautiful.
Our good friend Joe Terry spoke at First Responder Bridge this last time around.
Yeah. Joe Terry from the Chip Terry Fund. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not, Steve. She's an incredible lady. She's episodes 13 and 14 in our podcast, and her her presentation was very powerful. It led to a lot of things happening. Mark ended up getting the stellate ganglion block through her intervention, and that has made his life dramatically different.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
And Joe has providing funding for any department apparently that wants to teach yoga. She'll find the money to have them find a yoga teacher to come in and work with the officers and firemen and so forth. She's a dynamic lady. Her story is beautiful. Her husband committed suicide. He was a fireman for a long, long time. And like you're saying with family members, it's just an amazing thing as we've all worked here on our show to present the perspective of wives. It's a very different, meaningful kind of contribution that I think those episodes provide, and a lot of our listeners are very, very fond of those two episodes. It sounds really, really good to me. Now I'm noticing that you did something, and I'm very curious about this, trauma-informed care program. Does that ring a bell?
It does. And, it's not enough for us to train our personnel to be empathetic and, to try to use active listening skills and so forth. We got to do things in a trauma-informed way so that we don't make situations worse. Ooh. And what we need our folks to understand is sometimes wording is so vitally important. One of the things that we do that I've learned about is there is such a thing as trauma-informed yoga. And I didn't know that there was, but what trauma-informed yoga does is there's certain positions, there's certain things that they do in yoga that they don't do for trauma-informed yoga because maybe that was a position that a person was put in when they were victimized or something. Oh. And when they said that, I just like, the light bulb, I was like, wow, boom. I would have never thought of that. Yeah. Because I was not in that situation. So therefore, how we word things and how we talk about things. And, just being a little bit more empathetic, being a little bit more aware of things that folks have gone through. One of the things that I learned a lot, and I learned a lot in mental health and addiction services, is meeting people where they are, not where I think they should be or where I am. That's not important. Yeah. Meeting them where they are. Yeah. Being able to make sure that I don't make a situation worse, either by my words or my actions. Don't crowd some people. Don't raise your voice. And Jeff was joking earlier, and he's right. I have a very loud voice and stuff like that. But that could be to someone who has been through a traumatic situation, that the tenor of my voice and the volume of my voice and just, could be further traumatizing for them. So just being aware that sometimes you have to make adjustments, and it's not about me. I'm not the one that needs the help right now. Right. They're the one that needs the help right now. And if I need to modify my actions to help them, I'm not out anything. I'm not losing anything.
Right.
In fact, I'm gaining because I'm getting that opportunity to help them. So, the trauma-informed piece is extremely important. And that was one of the things I really enjoyed my time at Mental Health was very educational. That is an amazing organization who also took the time to educate me and bring me along and explain things to me. Never made me feel stupid, even though I'm talking to PhDs and master's degrees and stuff. They could have, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It was, let's explain this to you. Or what was your thought process? Let's work through it together. Just a great opportunity to make some changes and adjustments to some of my presentation styles and even some of my presentations.
That your stories trigger a lot of stories inside my head. I did trauma with abused children in the first part of my career, and God, they would tell me what it was like when the police came to the house to take them. Mm-hmm. When the police came to the house to take mom and dad away, whatever. It was like the tone of the communication is what the kids would talk about 5-10 years later. Was not the words necessarily, which I think is a really big deal. Language is incredibly impactful, especially in those situations. But the communication of care, of sensitivity, of listening, of empathy, of compassion, of kindness, that tone is what the kids would tell me about. That just really made a difference. And the same thing happened at the end of my career when I was working with pretty much my day was full of women who had been raped. And when they would come when they would talk about, some of them actually did report it to the law enforcement. Most did not. But the ones who did told me stories about how the ER nurse or the cop who was intervened on the scene, how that person communicated was they were caring, they were sensitive, they took care of me. The sense of being cared for was so loud from those voices. Right. Just powerful. Good for you, man. Yeah. And it's almost like all this about trauma-informed care, I just love what that could provide for just, not just law enforcement, but everybody. Let's have grocery store clerks. when you're talking to somebody that's coming through your line, man, you don't know what they just been through. Right. You have no fucking clue. And so your tone and how you communicate to just everybody on the street, that's one of the things that working with rape survivors taught me. Man, I don't know what that person who just bitched me out in the store because I wasn't moving my cart right, I don't know what the fuck they've just gone through. And I can stand here and bitch back at them, or I can just think, man, I'm not having that hard of a day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. and
one of the most exciting programs I know that's come to Ohio, and it started in Kentucky, is Handle with Care. Mm-hmm. And that is when the police departments respond on domestic violence, whatever they happen to respond to the house to, they notify the local school. Hey, Steve Click, Handle with Care. I don't divulge what was going on. I don't tell anybody's business. I don't go into it. The school knows that they're not going to get all those details. What they do know is that Steve, and as a child, was home during a traumatic experience, and Steve needs a little bit of understanding, a little bit of grace today.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean Steve gets to do whatever he wants. That doesn't mean that at all. What it means is if Steve's off by himself, if Steve gets emotional, if Steve breaks down, something happened, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of that. I think that's outstanding. Departments partnering with mental health in their communities for those situations with the public, but even for their own people. Mm-hmm. How do I help that? When an officer comes to a sergeant or a lieutenant and says, I'm going through a divorce, or she left last night, she took the kids and stuff like that. Well, that's not in our bailiwick. That's not what. But now I know I can reach out to local resources and say, "Oh, guys, I need some help here," and I can help that person.
Yeah.
When Jeff and I first came on the patrol, we were told, especially like if you roll up on a domestic, if they're just standing there screaming at each other, you get out and you scream louder, and you make them do exactly what you want them to do. Well, what we had was 3 people standing there screaming.
Yeah.
Now we know if they're not beating on each other, just stand there for a few minutes. And eventually they're going to stop and look at you and go, what? Great. Now we can have a conversation. It's just been a change in what we do. Now, giving my background, I grew up thinking every cop in the world knew my dad. Every cop. The guys on Adam 12 knew Dad. Sergeant Friday knew Dad.
Right.
Because, when you're a little boy, I mean, that's the whole world. I was never afraid of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And I think that law enforcement is doing an amazing job now going to these touch a truck details and visiting kids and stuff like that. We used to let the kids get on the motorcycles, and somebody's like, "Oh, aren't they gonna kick it? If they scratch it, we'll fix it." But the fact that the kid gets up and he gets to sit in the front seat of the patrol car and turn on the lights and make the siren go off, and he leaves looking at that officer as a friend.
Yeah,
hey, that was cool, as opposed to somebody that I'm now afraid of, or I never worried about getting lost because every cop in the world would have known where I lived as far as what I thought. So I think that being empathetic and using that trauma informed and being that friendly person that we kind of want our first responders to be.
Yes.
And the medics have gotten away with it for years, and that's why everybody loves firefighters. So we just need to take a little bit of an example from those guys and say, look, we're here as a service to the public, and we need to take care of our community, and we need to take care of our folks.
Yes. Beautiful. Beautiful. The Ohio First Responder Wellness Program, sir. You're director of that.
Yes, sir.
Did you create it?
I did. So when I retired from the patrol in 2018, I went over to Mental Health and Addiction Services as their first responder liaison. They had created that position, and I was able to move into that position. It's really kind of cool to get recruited.
Yeah.
To go to that new position. And then in 2021, I still liked working for OMAS. They were still treating me wonderful, still treating me great. We were in the middle of the pandemic, which made things difficult for everybody. But I had the opportunity to come back to the Ohio Department of Public Safety. They were going to start a wellness program, and they asked if I had any recommendations for somebody to come lead that effort. And I said, as a matter of fact, yes, I would be very interested. And I was very fortunate in that at that time, the Director of Public Safety, Tom Stickrath, and Karen Huey and Carlton Moore, all the leadership over there, brought me back over with open arms. But I still maintained an amazing, friendly relationship with OMAS. We still partner together on a lot of things. And then Governor DeWine's office officially recognized the Office of First Responder Wellness that fall by putting out a press release, and we still enjoyed that support. And now with Director Andy Wilson at the Department of Public Safety, he's extremely supportive. He's very conscientious about first responders and their mental and physical health, and what can he do to promote that. And when I say I don't get told no a lot, I don't. If I've got an idea, we can make it happen. They're like, go and make it happen. I don't get micromanaged. Go do your job, do what we hired you to do, and let us know what resources you need. And if it's within power, if it's possible, they get it for me. So yeah, it's really great. I've got a number of programs training programs that we do. Mm-hmm. We've actually got one right now we're getting ready to roll out here very soon, and it will be for clinician safety, for people that are working in the mental health world, dealing with individuals in the public, because they come from a different education, a different mindset. Mm-hmm. And I worked with Nikki Riley, who has my old position at OMAS. She's the first responder liaison now, retired detective from Reynoldsburg Police Department. We worked with mental health clinicians that we work with. We worked with NAMI and a couple of other big organizations that represent mental health clinicians. And we've come up with a program that we're going to be able to give them to provide them some ideas on how to stay safe when they're going out in the public, dealing with people. Stuff that all of us on this call were taught at the academy. Mm-hmm. People got to know where you're at. People got to know what you're doing. You got to watch their hands. Just stuff that we were taught, and it was, every day. They don't think that way. Right. And, I tell them, there's bad people out there that will take advantage of your good heart. And my goal is to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be safe so that you continue to take care of that community. So Nikki and I are getting ready. We're just getting the final approvals to be able to push that out to all the different mental health agencies across the state of Ohio. And that will become one of our new programs that we offer.
Awesome. How many other ones do you have?
I've got 5 programs right now, and then a 6th program that just basically is an overview of my position.
Okay.
I do a class called Self-Care, why it's important that you take care of you.
Yeah.
And as I tell people, nothing I'm going to tell you in the next little bit is going to be any big epiphany. It's all stuff you knew. You just needed to be reminded of it. I do a class called Crisis Awareness. What are some of the normal physical, emotional, cognitive, mental, faith reactions to when things go sideways? Because we know they're going to go, it's not if, we know when it's going to go sideways. And what I hope those folks do is when that happens, I want them to go, oh yeah, that guy told me that was going to happen. When I remember being in the academy as an instructor, one of the things we told the cadets is, don't know what you've seen on TV, but if you get shot and it hits your body armor, it's going to hurt a lot. It's going to be like you got hit with a baseball bat. You might bleed, you might break ribs, but you know what? The vest stopped the bullet, you're still in the fight. Because what we didn't want them to do is get hurt and go, oh my God, something really bad happened because I'm hurt. No, we told you that was going to happen. If you're fighting somebody with an edged weapon, you're going to get cut. It just is what it is. So when it happens, you don't freak out. So I talk about what are some of the reactions to a critical or traumatic incident. And the first thing I do is I define what is a critical or traumatic incident. And the answer is yes. If it is critical or traumatic to you, it's critical or traumatic. Whether it was last week, whether it will be next week, whether it is to your friend, whether, none of that's important. If it is critical and traumatic at this point in time, it's critical and traumatic. Yeah. And it's only important to you. Nobody else has to feel that way. Right. So we talk about what are some of the cognitive effects? What are some of the emotional effects? What's it going to do to your diet, maybe? What's it going to do to sleep? All these other things. But then as we wrap that course up, we give them some ideas on what to do to help themselves. We can't just point out what the problems are going to be. We got to give them some solutions.
When this happens, keep going.
I do a class called Retirement. What it's like to be a member of the Survivors Club. And Jeff, you'll know where this came from, Jeff Dickey. Jeff Dickey, on the day I retired, walked up, and you can see in our auditorium, in the auditorium at the Academy, you can see the wall of the names, and I know names on that wall. And Jeff would have been my boss at one time and just a great guy, comes up and shakes my hand, and he looks at the wall and goes, welcome to the Survivors Club. Not everybody got here.
Yeah.
And so that's what we call our retirement class. Welcome to the Survivors Club, because not everybody got to be where we are because either they left or other things happened. Yeah. So I don't talk about money. There's people way smarter than me to talk about the money. I talk about what it's like when you're not active duty anymore, when you don't get to come in the back door anymore because your swipe card doesn't work, whatever. What it's like to lose that title, because I had cadet, trooper, sergeant, lieutenant from the time I was 18 until I was 54. And suddenly I just became Steve. And that's an adjustment. Not a bad adjustment, but it's an adjustment. So I talk about that. I do a class on QPR, which is Question, Persuade, and Refer. It's a national evidence-based suicide education awareness and prevention program. So we do that class for agencies. How to recognize when somebody might be in crisis. And not only how do you recognize it, but how do you address it? Now, Jeff and I are friends. We've been friends for years. If I was worried about Jeff, I have no problem going to Jeff and, having that conversation. But let's say Jeff and I aren't friends, or we never really worked together, but I've seen things. I would go to somebody that I knew was a friend of Jeff's, and I would say, look, I'm worried about this guy. Will you please go talk to him? We got to ask the question in the right way, because I don't want to say, you're not going to do anything stupid, are you? Who's going to say, I'm going to sign up for something stupid? Thanks for asking. No one's going to do that. I'm not going to ask if you're going to hurt yourself, because that could mean a million different things. I'm going to look you dead in the eye and say, are you thinking about killing yourself? And then based on your answer, if you say, you know what, I am, I need to have something waiting besides, oh, wow, wasn't counting on that. I need to say, okay, great. Will you go with me to go get help? I know the place. I will take you there now. I will go with you. If we saw somebody suffer a heart attack, if we saw somebody in a car crash, we wouldn't hesitate to help them.
Mm-hmm.
If we know somebody we work with is in crisis, how would we feel if we knew it, we didn't do anything about it, and then we got that phone call?
Exactly.
Hey, so-and-so took his own life, or she took her own life the other night. In the back of your mind, you're thinking, I knew it. I knew there was something there, but I just didn't have the guts to say something either to them or go to somebody that was close to them and say, look, we need to take care of this person. So those are the programs. That I currently run right now. All of them are completely free of charge. I love doing in person, way more. I love doing, but I'll do whatever an agency wants. This year with the State Fire Academy, we started trying to transition back to in person. We did not get the attendance we were hoping for because I can't drive down from Toledo to Reynoldsburg to take a 2-hour class to drive back to Reynoldsburg.
Yeah.
So we're transitioning for the Fire Academy because it's statewide. We're transitioning back to an online format.
Okay.
But most everything I do, this morning I was down in Hamilton County in Cincinnati talking to the Chiefs meeting. I did the class. The last class that I do is called After the Call. What does an agency do when they lose somebody to line of duty, accident, or suicide? And that was the class I did today for the leadership of the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department. I had a number of chiefs there from different departments in Hamilton County. It was hosted by Hamilton County. They asked me to come down. And again, all of those trainings are completely free of charge. I have no trouble jumping in the car and heading down and meeting folks in person. I'll talk to 400. I don't care.
Gotcha. I assume departments have to come knocking on your door to request this. True?
Yes, I try to make sure as many departments know about what we have to offer. I go to chiefs meetings. I'll talk to anybody that wants that information, but I don't push myself on anybody.
Yeah.
Even after something has happened in their community, they may get a phone call from me and says, "Hey, this is Steve from the Department of Public Safety's first responder wellness. Is there anything that we can do for you folks right now?" "Nope, we think we got it." "Great. Okay. If you need anything, let me know."
Yeah.
They've got their hands full. The last thing they need is somebody showing up and saying, "Hey, I'm here to rescue you." They don't need rescued. They need assistance.
Right.
And if they need it, they'll ask for it. And if they say they've got it covered, you're grown-ups, you've got it covered. And we're just there in case something happens. And sometimes we'll get a call later. "Hey, now that the dust is settled, what are some things that you can provide? Can you give us the name of some clinicians or some classes or something?" Absolutely. We connect them with anything we can.
Beautiful. We're still good?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. Couple of things that I provoked in my head as I looked through your material, especially this part of it. You, therefore, with all that you do and all that you have done in the patrol, you have worked with a lot of different jurisdictions, a lot of different styles, flavors, levels of quality in terms of leadership and people taking care of their people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see across the state of Ohio anything that we're lacking, that Ohio needs to do kind of generally across the board better to take care of first responders?
I think we're doing a great job. I think as we find things, we're trying to make them available. Honestly, one of the biggest impediments we have right now is staffing. And that is that agencies are struggling to break people free for different trainings and different opportunities because I got to keep people in the front seat of a car.
Yeah.
And if this guy is tied up in this training for a couple of days, now I'm probably paying overtime for somebody else to fill that shift. So I think that's one of the big things that we're struggling with.
Yeah.
Funding is always going to be an issue for departments. That's why I make it very clear, I'm free. Mm-hmm. I want that department not to use the money to pay me. I want them to buy armor. I want them to buy new cars, new pistols, radios, upgrade this, upgrade that, build, that's what I want them to use. If they've got $10, I don't want any part of their $10. The state covers me. I drive their car. I'm compensated. Don't worry. I'm not out doing, use those monies that some people out there are taking from the departments. No, use it to take care of your people.
Yeah.
So I think right now, and we're looking at different ways to try to promote this. In the last year, we did a little over almost $14 million from ARPA for wellness for agencies across the state of Ohio, almost $14 million that was not there before, that we were able to promote and promote those programs, and had the support of state government to push those out to agencies. And unlike a lot of grants, when they applied for these grants, if it didn't meet, if it wasn't 100% right, in the past it would have been like, sorry, you didn't get it.
Exactly.
This one worked with them. Okay, A, B, and C. We can't do D, E, and F. What do you want to do in place of that? And so between the Ohio Department of Public Safety, with Ohio EMA and the Office of Criminal Justice Services, we've worked with these agencies, and let's get you compliant. Let's get you to where it will meet the criteria for the grant, so none of us are in trouble. We're all doing what the grant was intended for. But instead of just saying no, let's figure out a way that we can say, maybe not that, but let's try something else.
Yeah.
So I think between that, between the creation of my office, they're working on bringing some help in for me, which will be wonderful. Again, I have an amazing partner in Nikki over at OMOS. We cover each other when one's tied up. If somebody else can go do it, we just did that this week. If one of us is tied up, the other one covers for them. There's just no of that interdepartmental thing. No place for that. We don't have room or time for that. Yeah. So I think as a state, sir, I think we're doing what we can. We know that we can do better. We know that there's things out there that we just don't know yet. And we're continuing to keep our minds open to all the different possibilities and try to continue to promote that for, again, our police, fire, EMS, corrections, dispatch, Ohio-based military, mental health recovery boards, you name it. If they need help, we're trying to do that.
A lot of networking involved, sir.
Yes, sir, a lot.
Yeah, and it's kind of like constant. You
Pretty much.
You just do it all the time. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The only last thing I've got to say is listening to you, I love what you're saying. I love your tone. I love everything about your communication, bro. Our last guests were folks from Texas who reported that some folks from Ohio had come down to say, hey, we really like what you're doing because we don't have anything like this. And it was a residential program that offers first responders and veterans both the opportunity to be in a treatment modality for weeks, months at a time. And it was like, Ohio doesn't have anything like that. And then we have like the first responder bridge and Save a Warrior and a lot of outpatient opportunities for folks to go through trauma resolution work. But I don't know personally, do we have a residential program somewhere in Ohio that would be comparable to that?
We have a number of programs that are recognizing that they need to come up with a first responder track, which includes housing for individuals, and again, probably the first responder community can't keep their doors open, but if they are plugged into a track with other professionals, sometimes that's very beneficial. Okay. And we have a lot of programs across the state of Ohio that are recognizing that is a deficiency right now, and they are getting the training, they're getting their people spun up, they're going to the seminars, they're going, doing what they can. They're bringing people who started in public safety and now have moved into the mental health world. Yeah. And, they have that dual experience. They're bringing these people on board to help guide their programs. We don't have a place like the fire service has the Center for Excellence in Maryland, which is an inpatient substance use program, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. It's absolutely saving lives every single day. But it's things that we're looking for here in the state of Ohio. I know the Ohio State University has explored that idea. I know a couple of others. The city of Columbus, Ohio has a wellness center. Now, it's not a residential place, but it's a place that firefighters and police officers can go, talk to peers, have access to mental health clinicians, just get off the street for a few minutes to decompress before they take that next call. And their leadership is like, this is to be made available as much as possible to allow their people to go get that few minutes to get their equilibrium back after that particularly rough call, before I go out and that person says something to me, and next thing I know, we're on the nightly news. So jurisdictions, places around the state are looking to do those type of things for their local public safety, for their first responders. So we're seeing a lot of movement that way. I brag about the one in Columbus all the time.
Yeah.
I tell people it's a phenomenal facility. What a great opportunity. They took an old existing building, and the citizens really didn't have that much of an outlay, but what a great opportunity for their first responders, for their police and fire and EMS folks.
Dude, I'm thinking that sounds like an awesome place to volunteer. I mean, just to hang out as a clinician and just wait for see who comes in the door. I mean, that sounds really fun.
And what's really cool is that we have found that what people said would never happen, happens, which is law enforcement walks in there and maybe the law enforcement peers are busy. They'll talk to a firefighter, and firefighters will walk in and they'll talk to law enforcement. And they all swore for years those two groups wouldn't talk. And you know what? They talk all the time. they support each other and they talk all the time.
Yeah.
Very true. We are happy to have a retired fireman as part of our team, Donnie Cheney, and a retired trooper in Jeff, and two retired policemen in Marc and Kelly, and Greg Stevens, also retired.
Captain Fabulous.
So we've got a really nice mix of teams, and I totally understand what you're saying. Law enforcement seems to have a part intent to hurt each other to a degree. It amazes me how much law enforcement hurts each other. I mean, you got the people on the street and you got the people above you, but man, my partner's fucking me. I mean, there's fucking my wife, one of the two. So there's just so much of that goes on. But man, you walk into a group of firemen, it's a completely different atmosphere. There are people hugging each other and talking to each other like they like each other, and their wives are around, and it's just a completely different flavor of community in a room full of firefighters. And I would think there's a lot of stuff to share. Having Donnie here, having Marc here, having Jeff here, and Kelly and Greg, it's the combination of the backgrounds and experiences that makes for a rich interaction. And that wellness thing, that just sounds awesome. I mean, it's just, that's something that, it kind of needs to be everywhere. It's a safe place for folks to go in on shift. I love that idea. Don't wait till that evening, the next day, the next week, the next month, the next decade. Start with it right then when it's happened. Dude, you fucked up? Go here. Talk to somebody for 15 minutes.
Talk to somebody.
Get your shit set up. I mean, there's so many wonderful things that could come out of that opportunity. Love hearing that. Well, I'm out of points to discuss, bro.
Thank you guys so much for this opportunity.
Steve, thank you.
And a chance to see Jeff again.
Well, let me just say this, Steve, publicly real quick.
He's not going to brag about himself, but that was a true leader. That was a guy that his troops really, really responded well to. Just definitely he's in a good position now, and you folks are fortunate to have him.
Well, let me just say this real quick publicly, Steve. Through my journey, you were Ohio Assist before Ohio Assist. I mean, you reached out to a lot of us, and I've known you now. You were teaching at the police academy 30-some years ago now. So I've known you a long time, but we've never really hang out and have dinner. But you knew when there was a time to call me or text me, and not just me. I worked with the Chris Colberts of the world, and we had this conversation, Chris and I, when this program came out in our department. We're like, oh, great, here we go again, blah, blah, blah. Who's running that? Oh, Steve Click. And we're like, oh, shit, okay, yeah, this is going to be legit. Because, Steve, you were legit concerned, not just even for friends or foe, just anybody that you knew was struggling. You reached out before this program. So I say that to say this is, if anybody's listening to this and there's people that I've come in contact with, and I've just recently opened my eyes to see that there are people that care about yourself and your mental health, and that's Dr. Dave here, and not counting my close friends and stuff, and you're in the top 3 of people that I know personally that this guy cares, and you don't care about the money, you don't care about coming out in the middle of the night, you just care about people, and that you're bringing that to this organization, Ohio Assist, where you are now currently. And if people like, well, I don't know if this guy, and you were talking about counselors, like you don't know if they get it. this guy legitimately gets it here, and if he's putting it together and having a staff, that's somebody you can believe and trust in your mental health. And I, Steve, would say I appreciate your friendship, and I don't know if I've ever told you that, and I believe what you're doing, and if somebody were to talk to you, they would believe it instantly. So thank you for coming on and sharing all that with us, and you've been a big help in my life as well.
Thank you truly, my friend, and I feel the exact same way about you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, Mark.
No, what are you apologizing for?
No, you always like to talk, so go ahead.
No, it's
Yeah.
we share the microphones equally.
Yeah.
That's right.
Steve, I was scanning your website there. So do you want to do some plugs of how do people reach out?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, please, if you go to the Ohio Department of Public Safety Office of First Responder Wellness, we have a web page there. There's a red box up in the upper right-hand corner that says launch. If you do that, it will take you to a number of resources that we're just putting together around the state of Ohio. Everything from equine therapy to Save a Warrior to just different programs out there that we've been able to come up with. Please feel free to get a hold of me if there's anything I can do to help you, your department, a friend that you've got, anything else like that. Everything you tell me is completely confidential. I don't talk to the department. I don't talk to anybody at the department. I'm going to get you the resources that I can, and we're just going to try to make sure that we get you taken care of. If you want us to come talk at your agency, again, completely free of charge, have no trouble jumping in the car and heading that way. And if there's anything at all you need, like I said, you can find it all on that website, our contact information, email, all that stuff's on the Ohio Office of First Responder Wellness website.
Very good.
Beautiful.
Well, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on. It is a great meeting you. Wish we could meet in person, but I think that day will come soon enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would like that.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you very much. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up here.
Thank you, Steve.
You want to do the honors?
Thanks, folks.
Yes. Love you, Steve. And Donnie, cue the music.
There we go.
May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do. As you embrace the risk you must go through. May you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.